So hey guys, welcome to another video, and I finally fixed my issue. It was Nvidia injecting some ridiculous form of anti-aliasing that I never heard of, and it just completely broke everything. So that's fixed, and I can finally run a decent frame rate again. Now I'm gearing up my warrior. You can see me doing an invasion. It's the Iron Horde invasion, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm doing it as a Gladiator warrior. Now I really wanted to try out the new Gladiator thing, and personally I like it. I can see why other people don't and why some people absolutely hate it in PvP, because at least from my perspective, when I was doing Battlegrounds with this, it felt really overpowered for stuff like flag grabbing. Right, as a warrior, you have a ton of mobility. You can have 2 charges, you have Heroic Leap, you have Intervene, and you can Blade Storm to get rid of all the snares pretty much as well. So you have a lot of stuff. You have Shield Wall, you have Last Stand. You're basically a tank. When you switch to a defensive stance, you are a tank. But in Gladiator stance, you have some decent damage. Now, it is hindered by the lack of recklessness or any sort of cooldown, because you just don't have it. And the playstyle isn't the deepest of things either. Right, you're just building up resources, and you're waiting for cooldown, so you have stuff like Revenge and Shield Slam, and you're basically waiting for Shield Charge. So you do a Shield Charge, and then you want to use as many Shield Slams and Devastates and that kind of stuff in this window where you have it as possible. So it's kind of like a very a Colossus Smash that you have very often. It's pretty much that. It's very similar to Colossus Smash, but it's fun. It's fun. I wouldn't say it's better than Fury, and if you want to be a DPS warrior, you should definitely go with Fury or Arms if you are a very boring person. But if you're a protection warrior and you want to go and do some deeps, well, just switch that level 100 talent and you can do some decent deeps. I was kind of surprised that it's actually, doing as well as it is. The rankings on basically Simulation Craft are not bad. Like, you're not doing bad damage. You're one of the worst single target DPS classes, but that's understandable. That's because you don't have that 3-minute cooldown like Recklessness or any other cooldown. But it's kind of, it has its pros and its cons. So the cons, obviously, not very good on single target. You don't have that 3-minute cooldown, so you can't do really big burst. But the pros are very good as well. Having things like Demoralizing Shout is very strong. Even though it only affects you, you can still pick off a couple of adds on a boss fight and not really be bothered by them. Even in Gladiator stance. Like, you can do some decent stuff. You have Shield Barrier, which is strong as well. Being a DPS with active mitigation, it's not, the best of active mitigations, but you still have it. So that's pretty strong. It's kind of like, I would say, you have Shield Wall, you have Last Stand. It's kind of like a rogue. If you die as a Gladiator warrior, it's kind of like dying as a rogue. It shouldn't really happen. So that's pretty cool. And when you have an AoE fight, a very long AoE fight, it's actually going to pull ahead from a couple of classes. It's actually very good on sustained AoE fights. On burst, well, depends on your talents. If you have Blade Storm and Roar, you're going to do some decent damage as well. But overall, it's pretty good. But in Battlegrounds, it felt just overpowered. Straight up overpowered. I can run around as a Gladiator, and I can do some decent damage in Gladiator stance. But when I need to pick up a flag, I'm going to jump into defensive stance. And, I'm a tank at that point. So, with all the mobility, you can't really stop me as a warrior carrying a flag. As long as, there are less than 5 people trying to kill me, I'm usually fine. Just interesting. But as I've said, if you want to go DPS, you should really go with Fury. You have that 3-minute cooldown, you have your Recklessness, and overall you're going to do more damage. Okay? As both Single-Minded Fury and Titan's Grip Fury Warrior. So, pros and cons. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It actually reminds me quite a bit of the old school Feral Druids before we got the Feral and Guardian specs split up from just Feral, because back in, Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusade and Vanilla, Feral Druids were just Feral Druids, okay? You would have talents for both damage and tanking. And Blizzard eventually kind of regretted that, because Feral Druids became straight up superior on certain fights. And this is why, by the way, you can't switch stances. You know, you can't go from Gladiator to defensive stance in combat, because they don't want this Feral Druid thing to happen again. Because as I've said, Feral Druids were just straight up superior on certain fights where either the enrage timer was tight or you had to burst something down and your damage was very tight. So what would happen is you would just have Feral Druids, and they would tank as a bear, but as soon as they don't have to tank, they can jump into cat and do very good damage. So they don't want this happening again, so you can't switch stances when you have the Gladiator stance in combat. But overall, it's quite a lot of fun. I did a couple of dungeons as well. I felt kind of weak on single target, but on AoE, it was fantastic. I felt really good as a Gladiator warrior, but I still yes. I still feel better as a Fury warrior when I'm doing damage, because there's just more things to do. Also, the rage generation and consumption can be fairly wonky. There are times where you're just not doing much in terms of generating rage when you have to have rage, right? You have shield charge, you have revenge and shield slam ready. You just don't have the rage to execute this short burst combo, which is you charge with a shield and then you slam revenge and then you devastate. Sometimes you don't have the rage for that, but sometimes you just have too much rage. And the only thing you're really spending rage on is Thunderclap, which you're not using that often, Shield Charge, which you're not using that often, and then you have Heroic Strike. So you're just dumping rage with Heroic Strike, and you're just generating it up, dumping it with Heroic Strike, generating it up, dumping it with Heroic Strike. But then you get that charge, and you can do this short burst combo, so it's pretty good. But, as I've said, not as good as Fury, in my opinion. But still, a very, very decent spec, and a fantastic off-spec for prot warriors.